Yes, we are live again. And for the last speaker of today, Mauro Triulzi will be giving a presentation on the support for the improvement of the governance budget of the pension fund supreme body in their risk management tasks. Mauro is an actuary and developer who worked for Alia Limited, and he has a PhD. He is a Swiss Actuarial Association actuary, pension fund expert, SKPE member of the Swiss Chamber Pension Fund Experts Senior Consultant, and he is risk management for the Swiss pension funds and ALM studies international accounting, including IFRS, US GAAP, IPSAS publications and presentations at the international actuarial conferences. So it's a lot kind of shortcut abbreviations, but please join me in welcoming Mauro to the floor. The floor is yours, Mauro.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the introduction. I have a small correction. I am not member of the Swiss experts of the pension fund. I'm only a Swiss actuary. The subject of this presentation is the support of the supreme body of a pension fund in Switzerland based on forecasted 10 years government bond and inflation rate. And we use this forecast to help estimate potential liability and improve benefits for pension fund memberships. Inflation and bond yield forecasting helps to regularly communicate with pension fund membership about future benefits compared to the future cost of living. The forecasting supports the pension fund board of trustees to decide how to improve benefits and finance them. Here we can see the risk of a Swiss pension fund. We see the inflation as a Swiss pension fund, our cash balance plan, where savings capital are accumulating using employees and employee contributions, and then there is noch an interest rate which is decided each year, and the accumulated capital is then converted in a pension at retirement age. And inflation is surely a risk for the employees, for the insured persons, and for the pension fund too, because has an influence on liabilities and also on interest rates. And that is, it would be really helpful to have a reliable forecast to decide where the benefits are reduced or not. Swiss pension funds over the last 10 years adjust the liability structure based on the Swiss pension fund experts guidelines. That is, they have each year, they have the supreme body have to decide if the guaranteed benefits are reduced or improved. And the Board of Trustees confirms annually the interest credit level for saving accounts and decides if indexation or increase of pensions in payment is necessary. That's the reason, because forecasting of inflation and government bond yields are very important to make correct decisions. For the next here is a figure which shows the meaning of the distribution. Here we have different bandwidth. Here is the 30%, 6%, or 90% bandwidth around the median. Here we have what we are doing. We are doing forecasts based on the historical of the past inflation rates, and the same for the Swiss 10-year bonds yield. We see, for example, the inflation is increasing since Corona here. and the Swiss 10-year government bond yields were also increasing starting in 2022. Now 2 words about the government budget. Here is the structures of a Swiss pension fund. The supreme body of trustees is responsible for overall management of the pension fund, and it has 50% are representatives of the employees and 50% representative of the employers. Then there is a management team of the pension fund. There is an external pension fund expert which is ensuring that legally conditions are met. And of course, we have external auditors and the Federal Occupation Pension Supervisory Commission, which is also supervising that the pension fund is correctly managed. The supreme body has a really important task. It has a non-transferable and inalienable task to setting the financing system and comprehensively designing, monitoring, controlling the asset management to improve earnings. It is they have a really important role to improve earnings, but also to give them ensure the members, the active on pensioner, the best benefits given the financial situation. Here is the definition of governance budget of the supreme body. The governance budget is the capacity of the decision-making supreme bodies to manage all issues related to risk management. And we have to say that membership in Switzerland, membership in the supreme body is not a full-time job. They are not specialists, actually. But the scope of duties is enormous, and the fulfillment of the legal requirement requires a lot of time and expertise. And they take also responsibility if they take a wrong decision. They are responsible with their assets, private assets. It's really important. It's really important that they know exactly what they are doing. Evaluation of government budget is based on 3 parameters: time, expertise, and organizational structure. And training and further education of the supreme body members is legally required. For the theme of the training and further education for supreme body is very important the visualization of risk indicators defined and declared as a minimum standard by the supervisory authorities. We have 2 guidelines, FRP4 and FRP5. FRP4 is based on 10-year government bond yields, and with this guideline gives an upper limit to the technical discount rate. And FRP5 guidelines gives a condition on the threshold portfolio return, or TPR. That is expected portfolio return to keep the pension fund funding ratio constant. With these 2 conditions, they have to be met, and so it's really important that the members of the supreme body know exactly how these 2 conditions are calculated. It's also important that improving benefits due to increasing inflation, for example, it would be always a welcome change to improve benefits, will increase the threshold portfolio return. And so the members of the supreme body have to understand exactly what happens when they are increasing benefits for the insured persons. It will increase the threshold portfolio return. Then FRP5 guideline apply, and then they have to prove the investment strategy, which has to be adapted to the new condition. If not, it's not possible to improve the benefits. So to support pension strategic objectives, we use a forecasting approach. So as I said, correct forecasting for liability development to verify the expected TPR to be not too low, not too high, because if it is too low, it's against the interest of the insured person, because the benefits are too low, and not too high because in this case the financial stability of the pension fund would be at risk. So this correct forecasting gives a chance to improve benefits for pension fund memberships, and it helps to analyze the portfolio return and asset allocation. And it is really important that this asset allocation is compatible with the threshold portfolio return. So if the expected threshold portfolio return is overestimated, then the benefits would be reduced to decrease the future threshold portfolio return. And then in this case, the active membership would be very affected. So here are 2 words about forecasting approach. We use the neural network autoregressive, which is a machinery. There are packaging that are doing that. They are analyzing the past history of, for example, in this case, of the 10-year bonds yields, and they are doing a forecast with a distribution. That is, we can calculate quantiles. In this case, we see that the forecast is quite on par with the historical development. In this case, we have naturally a big increase but this big increase is in the forecasted bandwidth. There are actually two methods which are very popular to do forecasting. One is NNAR, and the other is ARIMA. ARIMA at the property that the bandwidth will become very big with time is a typical parabola form, and we see that the NNAR forecasting is better, because it doesn't forecast such a big negative inflation. And negative inflation would if we would to consider that in our forecasting, this negative would reduce. Negative inflation would reduce bond yields and technical rates. In this case, it would have a stronger liability increase, and we had to. It would have a consequence for our measure, which we would take based on this approach. Especially in payments, is strongly affected by increased inflation due to reduction of their real values, and that is inflation forecast is very important. Here we see the same model, NNAR, applied to inflation rate. We see that if we take the 65th percentile of the results, we see the forecast inflation rate is going to be lower than 2.2% in 5 years here, with the median 1.25. To decide about the indexation of pensions, we take always an average over 3 to 5 years, and then we consider this average, we consider this graph, and then we take 3 years average or 5-year average, and we see the forecast inflation over the next 3 years as a median of 2% and then 1.2%. And for the 65th percentile, we have 3% and 2% over the next years. And if we take the average over the next 5 years, we see a median of 1.6% and 2.5% at 65th percentile. And but still an inflation of 1.6% is reducing real benefits, and we have to take measures. Why is the 10-year bond yield necessary? Because the 10-year bond yield is used to calculate the upper limit for the economic funding ratio, for the calculation of the technical discount rate, used then to calculate the economic funding ratio. So we are here doing a forecast. Here we have historical data till 30th April always, and then we are doing forecasts at different times. We then apply this forecast with the rule to calculate the upper limit. This is a quite simple formula. We take the average of the last year of the 10-year bond yield for the last year plus 2.5%. We see, for example, that actually we have about 3%. Then we see that the average of the last year is about 1%. Then we are jumping to 3.5% because we have to add 2.5%. But using this forecast and taking always the average of over the year, we see that the upper limit will fall in the next 3 years to the same level, about 3%. So we can for example use that this upper limit could fall. So it's important for the comprehension ist auch die Visualization. If we have to explain to members of the supreme body of a pension fund, it's important that we use visualization. For example, here we have nominal Swiss yield curves. We see in this axis we have the years, and here we have maturities. We see and for the FRP4 we have to take the 10 years. That is this section of this chart. So another interesting thing about visualization, we can, for example, see that the variance of the daily bond yields with maturity over the 5 years is the bond yields with maturity over the 5 years are more volatile compared to the bond yields with maturity higher than 10 years. And in this case, we have only to rotate the graph, and we see that the variance is smaller. That is, we can really see with the appropriate visualization, we can really see properties and properties of the development of bond yields, which would be quite theoretical and difficult to grasp without such visualization. It's very important to the communication because, as I said, members of the supreme body have to know exactly what they are doing, what they are inciting, and they can cope with the too theoretical communication. So here in this case, we can, for example, compare the two crisis periods. Here about 2006 to 2008. We can see the structures of the yield curve at different times. We can see, for example, the difference. We have here an inverted yield curve. For example, it was September 2022. We didn't have that in, for example, in the crisis in 2008. Here we can compare, for example, nominal and real yield curves. Here, real yield curves take into account the inflation rate. Actually, we have to subtract the inflation, and we see that the yield curves are much flatter compared with the nominal yield curves. Now, how to improve liabilities? So we can resume that what we said. that inflation yield curves analysis on their forecast should be done quarterly based on Swiss National Bank data. The visualization of nominal real yield curves helps to understand the yield bond volatilities, to compare periods, for example, and therefore to decide how to stabilize the funding ratio of the pension fund. And really important that the Supreme Body understand the forecast for FRP4 and FRP5 guidelines. And then perhaps now an example how we could use all this in practice. For example, we saw that the indexation of pension funding payment is made based on average inflation over the last 3 to 5 years. Now we have inflation forecasting with an average median over 5 years for 1.6%. And we know that in our forecast inflation rate is below 3% in 65th percentile in the next 3 years, but could be higher than 4.8% over the 18th percentile. Then the Supreme Body could decide, for example, to offer a bonus annuity for pensions in payment of at least 1.5 to 2%, and to add an extra interest rate of the same level, 1.5 to 2%, to the minimum, legally minimum interest credit, which is now only 1% for active members. And such extra benefits would not be legally guaranteed. That is, it would be only for a restricted time, for example, 1 year or 2 years. It would be no guarantee, no life guarantee. But it could be something that could counteract the effect of inflation. Okay, and now I think I'm at the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mauro, for a very interesting presentation. It's the last presentation, and I'm also aware that we are a little bit you went a little bit over time, so have little opportunity for questions. I guess there's a lot to ask. You explained the methodologies, the outcomes, what the impacts were for the pension funds. On the methodology first, it appeared that the NNAR method was better than the ARIMA. But I can see that there may also be disadvantages of applying NNAR. So what would be disadvantages of NNAR, in which cases you would still maybe like to see the ARIMA approach?
There is not really a method which is better than the other. In this case, we tried to parameterize NNR to adapt it to the evolution of the inflation rate, and we saw that NNR pragmatically was effectively at a smaller bandwidth. Very interesting, and it would better reproduce the development. That's the reason. But it's not that one method. We cannot say that one method is better than the other. But for a forecaster, we see empirically that NAR is better suited to the development of inflation rates. But we could review this opinion given other data. That there is not a final answer in this respect.
No, that I understand. Then some further in your talk, you indicated that the upper limit could very well decrease, or is expected to decrease in the next 2 to 3 years, so 24, 26. How likely is that it will actually decrease and not even further increase, because inflation is not over yet?
But our good FRP4 is based on 10 years bonds, not inflation. But we have to say, okay, we have to say that these are models that say that it's based, prediction is based as a best estimate, given that we have not other information based on the past, because, for example, it catch periodicity, and it's really mechanical. There is no intelligence. But if we have more information about political and economical events that are very likely to happen in the future, we have to probably to adapt to this prediction. We see these models, NAR or ARIMA or also other model, as a second opinion and the best estimate, but it should not be taken as the only method to do prediction, because this is artificial intelligence. We have also intelligence. That is, we have to be pragmatic and to see what happens in the world, what could happen too, and put that in the model too. So it's my opinion, because it's good to have the technique which support us, but we have to integrate with other information. And that's the importance of to have a board, a supreme board. We are not only technical people, but people who have they take responsibility first, and then they have to sign and to pay with private assets if they take the wrong decision. So it's important to have that a second opinion. They can really support the decision, also in interest for the pension fund and in the interest of the members of the pension funds.
Yeah, that is clear. And also talking about the interest of the members of the pension fund, the guaranteed benefits reduced the last several years. Is there a kind of limit or a stop below which the benefits can no longer decrease, because then the members would end up under a certain living standard? What's your view on that?
So it's a problem also in Switzerland. In Switzerland, we are legally limits. We have a sort of minimum plan, and we have given a career with a salary and so on. There is a parallel plan, and this parallel plan gives some benefits, and these benefits are guaranteed. But the idea would be that a pensioner would have 60 to 70% of the last salary. But in this case, we see that there is a pressure to weaken these these limits in Switzerland too. For example, the conversion rate, which uses 10%, which converts capital in pension. There is now a pressure to reduce that because of augmented life expectations and problem with the financing. But in the moment, there is a political issue. In Switzerland, we have a limit. At any case, we have a limit, and we have also the interest rate is always positive. This is in the savings capital have always at least 0%. That's better than nothing, because I heard that other pension are much worse. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I think it's good to conclude with this last words of you. And I would like to thank all of the presenters of this session, the last session of the ICA 2023, Rosalind, Simon, Mauro, and Luciani, for their insights, and also like to thank the organizers of the ICA 2023 for the opportunity for all the speakers to speak and organize all these sessions. All the attendees that are still up and awake, thank you for attending. No more sessions after this, and look forward to see you any other session, ICA 2026 or earlier. Goodbye.